do this all the time. So you have to make sure that everything that you guys are doing is done with as much due diligence as you can. The government intervention flows directly into your corporate debt assignment for next week, which flows directly into mergers and acquisitions after that, which flows directly into your personal, right? So that's all business related, which flows into your personal financial resume and credit scores, which will directly be impacted by the bailouts you're receiving as a small business, or directly as someone who lost or didn't lose their job or makes certain financial decisions in this health and economic situation we find ourselves in. So they all play a part, they all flow on top of each other and build. So please make sure you guys are taking these assignments seriously. It's not just for me to talk to myself. It's not just to give you guys busy work. This is stuff that you really need to know. And I'll be looking through this document, which I got sent to me, which is, oh, it's on my other laptop, sorry. So I can't show it to you right now. Actually, you know what? If I have my Gmail open, I just sent it over to someone. I can actually download it and take a look, because I'll need to go through this today, because I need to work on getting my wife's business their small business loan. Okay, so that is definitely something that, there we go, commercial loans, executive summary. So this is the executive summary of the COVID-19 lending program and response legislation. Now, this is, again, to the American Bankers Association, March 2020. So this is right now. They just got this document, which means you just got this document. You're welcome. Okay. You're probably one of the first handful of people in the country to see this outside of the Senate and the bankers. So it's kind of cool for you guys and for me to be able to have the connections to be able to show you this legislation. This is the training material that they're using as their foundation to start their conversations on the lending programs that the government's doing. So all of this, again, reasons why, one, it's good to have you here. Two, it's good to pay close attention. All right. Any questions on that so far? So what they're covering is small business lending, which is authorizing a $350 billion 3-month 100% loan to cover payroll, mortgage, rent, and utilities. It will be 100% forgiven if you don't fire any employees during that time frame, as long as it's used for these costs. So that all these businesses have to make sure they keep all of their receipts to prove to the government and to the lender, all right, what they've used this loan for. Then it talks about, you know, when you'll get the loan, the cap of the loan, types of business who can receive the loan, limits to the size of the loan. Then you scroll down a little more, it talks about the Treasury and the Fed. So this is from the government fiscal policy. Then they start talking a little bit about the Fed lending program to aircraft carriers and cargo carriers and businesses critical to national security, which is a lot of times airlines, defense, Lockheed Martin, Boeing. They're probably going to lump into that. I don't know if you'd consider Google necessarily a national security because they have access to so much data. I might. I'm not sure if you guys would. Would you guys consider Google a national security company, a company vital for national security?
I would.
All right. Anybody else? William, I saw you unmute.
Yeah, I would, because of how much data they have about us and about different companies.
Would anybody not consider them? Because if you consider Google, then would you consider Facebook a national security?
I don't know about Facebook. I mean, Google, yes, because they have just so many different types of platform, not only are they like a search engine to go to other places, but they also have like Google accounts for everyone. Like there's YouTube, there's so many like things that Google utilizes. Meanwhile, Facebook, I mean, they're more like advertisements now and like, I don't know, it's just social media. But Facebook does have a lot of data because it has like advertisements for companies as well.
Okay. So let's look down. You have banking provisions. So you have troubled debt restructuring. So companies that want to restructure their debt, right? Their loans and their bonds that they're selling. Debt guarantee programs. It modifies the Dodd-Frank Act. I'm not sure what CECL delay is. I'll have to look into that. Community leverage ratio, community bank leverage ratio, national bank lending waivers, mortgage forbearance, multi-family home forbearance, blah, 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 blah. So this is pretty in-depth. We are some of the first to get access to this. Shout out to Mr. Hood, who's trying to set up a time to talk to you guys next week about his viewpoints on fiscal and monetary policy, what his expectations are about fiscal and monetary policy, what he thinks this will do, what he agrees and disagrees with in terms of the government and the Federal Reserve Bank's response. All right, so make sure you guys have all your ducks in a row. Make sure you guys are prepared for that. When I have that information, hopefully later today, because he's in a training this week, I will reach out to you today or this weekend on that. Okay, so with that, this is due tonight, so you're probably already almost done with your government intervention. This is easy. What is the current state of COVID-19? This is easy. What are your assumptions based on data of economic ramifications? Easy. This is a little more complex. Understanding the Fed's policy and what you think they should do. And then fiscal policy, what you think they should do. So here's my question to you guys. One, do you have any questions on your research? First. So let's do that. If you have any questions, type it into the chat. Or just unmute yourself if you can, but typing it means we can see it for a longer period of time. Does anybody have any questions about it? None of this is too complex. Let's be honest. For the average person, it is. For you guys, it's definitely not. We've been talking bonds and debt and monetary and fiscal policy for months. This is really just, now you're seeing all this stuff in motion, right? Now you're seeing all of this stuff really be applied and really trying to combat an issue. You know, we were talking raise or lower taxes on businesses because what's fair, what's not fair. Now you have a global crisis emerging, a potential global economic slowdown. This is where you have to have leadership at the Fed and in government to determine federal response and monetary response. Monetary response and fiscal response. So now all you're doing is applying what we've already talked about. Not much of this is new. Since you seem to have no questions, can you tell me what you think your craziest or best idea is to impact this issue we face, whether it's the health part or the consumer health part or the small or large business health part? It can be Fed or it can be White House. So it can be monetary policy or fiscal policy. What do you guys have? Unmute, let me know what you got. Give me your best ideas. If you have a best idea. If you think your ideas are average, keep them to yourself. All right? Because if your ideas are average, I'll be honest with you. One, you probably didn't go too in depth, which is a concern for me. And two, if you think your idea is average, then it's probably not going to have a drastic impact economically on consumers, small or large businesses, or the virus. So I'm looking for your best or craziest idea to have an impact. Not just, oh yeah, I had this idea, whatever. All right? I need a lot more, what do I say? A lot more depth and drastic measures from you guys, right? So what is your drastic measure? What do you got? I'll let you, William, you want to talk about that? Go ahead.
Yeah, so a week ago I saw this talk show host talk about how in South Korea, they basically have like an effective testing system.
Okay.
They're able to like send out tests to like people's homes and they can like get the results in like, I think a matter of days. or maybe less. And so basically, I thought that America should try to like implement that into, let's say, like the most affected cities or states like New York, Washington, California. Because if you're able to do that, you'll be able to like better like quickly understand who has the coronavirus, so that you can just isolate them. Because the longer you wait to get a result, the more likely it is that people will start to spread it.
Okay. Do you think then, William? Now they're working on that, right? They're working on getting more
Yeah.
tests and all this other stuff. Do you think we should test every single person in the United States?
Probably not, because that's not, I guess, an effective way to test, because you'd be overspending per se. Because let's say not everyone's going to get the coronavirus, so maybe there has to be certain limits, or maybe just test the areas that are like most impacted right now.
Okay. Anyone else?
I feel like we do have to. Sorry, I feel like we do have to kind of.
Hold on, Shannon.
Emery?
Talking first. Shannon, go ahead.
I feel like we should test everybody, because right now we're testing a portion of the population. So all our data and our statistics are on a portion of our population, and our population is so much larger than what is really being tested. So if we were to really test the entire population, we'd find out better statistics and what portion of our population we're actually dealing with that has this virus, and what kind of resources we would need to combat the larger portion that does have it.
So do we send everyone to the hospital? Do we have a mail-in system where they send you something to the house, kind of like the way they send you your refund check, and then you swab yourself and mail it back? What is the process here?
Yeah, I think it'd probably be best to do it by mail, and even just having like local businesses like chip in on like funding some of that research, and then worry about like running their businesses later. Like we need essential like supermarkets and pharmacies to continue running, but some of the businesses that have extra money that they're not using, like big corporations and big businesses, could be joining in, and a lot of famous people haven't really been funding anything. I feel like a lot of people who have the money to invest in making these vaccines and making the tests should be.
Okay, interesting. I'm not sure I'd go crazy about. I think if the government has $6 trillion to spend on this, then I think the government should be able to do this without individuals or small businesses helping. You know, if your Apples and Googles and Amazons and Walmarts help, that's one thing. But, you know, they have a good balance sheet. And if you make them help without forcing the companies like airlines that don't have a healthy balance sheet, or banks, you know, I don't think it's fair that because Apple made smart financial decisions, they have to pay more to help. But I do think maybe you have to figure out a way. But if the government has $6 trillion to spend, I'd like to think that we can test every single person. That's an interesting way to go about this. Anybody think? Hold on. Daniel says, okay, Daniel, do you want to discuss what you said? Daniel, Dutch Tellier. So I'll read it.
Sorry,
Okay,
I was eating.
You were eating. Okay, great. What do you have? What did you eat? Eggs, pancakes, bacon?
Eggs.
Eggs. Nice. Over easy or scrambled?
Scrambled.
Oh my God. Cheese?
Scrambled is best.
Yeah.
All right. No ketchup, right?
No.
Good. I don't trust people who put ketchup on their eggs. So what's your idea?
So you know how hospitals and stuff, they're short beds, ventilators, and I even like I personally know people that have gone and tried to get tested and their symptoms are severe, and the doctor would be like, oh, you probably have it, but we can't give you an affirmative test or confirm you have it, because they just don't have the resources for it.
Agreed. I have people who had the same experience. So what's your solution? You wrote something about the Army and hospitals.
So basically, the Army can, you know how they have tents or whatever?
Yeah.
I know the government was trying to pass it, or it was one of their ideas, but they haven't really done anything. And they were going to use hospital parking lots basically as makeshift hospitals to house the sick and isolate them, so to flatten the curve.
Yep. So they are they're trying to use actually Sony Stony Brook Stony Brook. Sorry, they're looking at using Stony Brook as turning their dorms into hospitals. They're also looking at a few other colleges across the country who do that.
They did that in Yale.
Say that again, Gabe.
They did that in Yale. They used their gyms to put beds for sick patients so they
Right,
can come in.
Right. So that's the plan. And then also to use, like you said, to create big tents for outside facilities, which I agree with also. So they're planning it. Whether it's done, I'm not sure. So those are good ideas. What else? Does anybody have a crazy idea? Like somebody, Rafi and New Apps gave the class a crazy idea that stirred a little bit of a argument. Do you guys have anything that would kind of stir the pot? If you had to do something drastic and you were the president, what do you think would be drastic?
What?
Probably taking all the sick people and like separating them, isolating them, create a special area to put everybody in, contain all of them, try to keep them away from everybody else. Like a big stadium keeping 100,000 people inside locked up.
Dude, that's a concentration camp.
Right, so
But it'll stop the curve. It'll make it clear.
I would kind of agree.
Let's not call it like, let's not say lock them up, but I think every person who tests positive goes to the hospital. What do you say to that?
Well, what if they don't want to get tested and they don't want to go to the hospital?
There's your issue.
Or what if it's like a little kid too?
That's an issue. Now you're correct. What if you don't want to go, get tested, and then you have it, but you don't want to go to the hospital because you know that you're going to be locked in the Stony Brook dorms? Like imagine Stony Brook dorms. Let's say it holds 10,000 people, and then Yale holds 5,000, and then SUNY Old Westbury holds 15,000. Well, you put all these people in these dorms. What if they don't want to go to the dorms? And the moment they find out, they're going to say, "Fine, I'll stay home. I won't get tested." That might be where the Army comes in. Should you force everyone to get tested and then pull them out of their house?
I have a crazy idea.
Oh boy.
Okay, so it might be a bit of restriction, but everybody has to stay inside. No one has to come out. If they come out, they get shot on site.
Oh,
Shot?
whoa.
Yeah,
How about they
Okay.
don't get shot? How about they get like a ticket?
Ticket.
or tranquilized.
Wow.
But
That's a little.
Mr. Powers, in a lot of other countries, like in China and like other like not I don't know, I guess they take more like serious approaches to people who
Yeah.
have corona. Like they're more violent and they're more like they take it more serious. In America, they don't really like take it as serious as they should, which kind
Well,
of
why
like
is that? Why is that?
Freedom. We all have
Freedom.
freedom to do whatever we want.
That's it. Your
But-
freedom is good and bad at some situations.
Mhm.
And that's the situation you find yourself in. Where do you flirt with that line where it's too much or it's not enough? Where's
Freedom,
the line? That's the discussion.
freedom can be restricted in times of crisis or war. So that's why I put it
that's
as
true.
Right.
It is true. However, what do you have coming up in November?
Election.
Election.
An election. Do you really want to be the president that
Nah,
decided to
that's
martial
crazy.
law the entire country going into an election?
Nope.
Damn.
I kind of would.
Yeah.
It shows that I have the balls to do more than is expected.
That's right.
But you might piss off a lot of people.
Mhm.
So it's double-edged sword. So let's get to, we got some great ideas. Do you have any questions on the Fed or fiscal response that you guys came up with or researched? I mean, if nothing's burning in your brain, then it means that I'll probably have some good content to read and look at. On a scale of 1 to 10, everyone just type in the chat box. 1 being easy, 10 being difficult. How difficult was this assignment in terms of fiscal and monetary policy, research, and decision making? Man, my assignment was soft. 1? Who the hell put a 1? Gabriel? I'm gonna have to read Gabriel's with a fine-tooth comb. So this was relatively easy for you guys. I don't see any 8s, 9s, or 10s, not even a 7.
I mean,
I'm getting soft in my assignments. It was just really long. Now,
No,
Danny, I
please.
understand it was long. It wasn't meant to be confusing. It was meant to be, so the discussions that we have are much more higher order than many of your peers or your parents are probably having, or friends or relatives, whatever that is. I'll give you an example. I wrote it in the Discord. You know, CNBC last night was talking about something, and my wife yells out, Mr. Powers was discussing that in class yesterday. Like, we're having discussions that TV is having later. Like, we're already having these discussions. So you guys are on par with some of these people that are really, you know, having discussions on television. So first and foremost, that was why it's so long. It's not meant to be convoluted in the sense that it's boring and lengthy, but in the sense that everything flows, because you cannot do fiscal policy or monetary policy without knowing the current situation, without understanding what the next issues are coming up in the economy. And then monetary policy and fiscal policy would be your decisions you make based on these two research pieces. So yes, lengthy, but yes, a necessary evil to get you guys thinking in terms of your Jerome Powell and your President Trump. Okay, so here's my question to you guys. Last question. Nathan said a 7. Ethan said a 7. Thank you. Now, I'm not saying you have to say a 7, but I'd like to think that it did involve a little bit more thinking and research. And maybe it was just length and it wasn't difficult because you guys already had these discussions. So that's okay with me also. Here's my question to you guys then before we move on. Do you start sending people back to work in clusters next week? It's been 2 weeks. Okay. No. Do you start saying, okay, we're going to open up banks, but keep social distancing. We're not going to open gyms. We're going to keep supermarkets open. Starbucks you can go into, but you can't sit down, stay 6 feet apart. You still can't go to parks in groups of more than 2. You can go to your job, but you have to stay, you know, only half of your employees can come back, and it's a requirement to wipe down all your equipment every day, stay 6 feet apart. You can bring back 25 or 50% of your workforce if you want to. You can start flying domestically again, but only at 50% of people on the plane. If you start opening in small chunks like that, type yes if you're okay with that, and oh, you guys are already typing. Super amount of no's right now. But that's because you guys also live in New York City. What would you tell the people who live in South Dakota?
To start quarantining before it reaches them.
Start quarantining now. Okay. Well, what would you say to Congress? You have Democrats and Republicans who want to get the economy back rolling. They want to get people back to work. This $1,200 check that I'm not qualifying for, but that other people are getting, is going to help them. But one check for $1,200, that's going to save me when I'm not working for 2 months. Thank you for nothing. Mm-hmm. Right? You've got to get me back into my job. Minus teachers who are getting paid because we're working still. There's some people who are not working. So can you get these people back to work in clusters? Italy, Subhan, you want to talk about that then? Subhan's mentioning Italy. Subhan, go ahead. Subi?
Oh, let me see on the mic.
Yeah, you're on the mic.
Oh, okay. I was just saying that Italy gave us the same warning about quarantining, and we kind of didn't listen. And now New York City has like one of the most. I mean, U.S. is #1 right now in cases, and like I remember a while ago they still were 2 weeks behind Italy, so it's more like now we're like 1 or a couple of days.
Yeah. So what do you think? You know, do you put a time frame on it? You say 2 more weeks.
He did say he wants to reopen by April 6th, so I guess that's kind of the time frame, but I doubt it's going to work by then.
What day is April 6th?
I think it's Easter.
No, like the 13th.
A Monday.
Monday. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, April 6th is after your next assignment is partially due. April 6th would be Friday. Nope, lied. April 6th is
Monday.
Monday. So it's like 7, 8, 9, 10 days from now. Monday, April 6th.
It depends on how much the virus develops at this point since they've been quarantining. Obviously, if it's the same or gets worse, they can't reopen.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think for now it's about getting the right care for the virus itself, like being able to test people and then get them to recover, and that comes with, getting more ventilators. And I heard today that Dyson was like donating 15,000 ventilators globally.
Yes, somehow
there's more businesses that will donate towards the cause.
Tesla too. Tesla are making masks.
Yeah.
You can
Guys,
get
I got a
businesses
question.
to decline numbers.
I got a crazy question. How? Apple has 1 million masks. Facebook has 720,000 masks.
Yeah.
Tesla has like respirators for California.
They're making them, yeah.
What are they in their basement? Like, how the hell are they doing that?
Did they have them for the fires in California?
Maybe. So maybe for California they have all those masks for fires. I don't know. Seems
I
kind
feel
of
like Apple might have some in China.
That's a good
They have
question,
like
though.
factories, so
Right.
just like bring them over.
You have access. A lot of these companies have facilities in Asia where they can acquire this, bring them back and
Right.
donate. You're right. So I got a question. I just got off track for a second. Looking at the response that we have now, right? Do you think that you should put any timetable on getting people back to work, or just say we'll let you know when we're ready? Or should you give them an estimated time frame?
I think you should give like people an estimated time frame just so they know not to not get lazy, but so they have like a goal in mind, so they can have like enough time to get themselves ready and like prepare themselves for like a due date when they can come back to work, and they don't feel like they're just on vacation for the rest of the month, for example. Like makes them feel lazy.
I think that it could also go both ways though, because if you give them a time frame and then it doesn't end up working out at that time, then they might get really angry that it didn't end up,
So let me ask, Nicole, while you're here, I'm going to give you a human resources question. As human resources for a company, would you lay off workers, or would you still pay them their salary? Would you lay them off, then rehire them, or would you pay them, or would you keep them on staff and continue to pay them not to work?
I think that if they were working from home and we had evidence of that, that would be a different story. If we were giving them work and they were completing tasks that we were giving them that were like contributing to the business, then that's different. But if they weren't doing anything and they weren't contributing to the business, then I think that they would have to be laid off, because we wouldn't have the money to be paying employees that aren't doing work for us.
Okay, so the nail salons, the delis, the gyms, the hair salons, the Starbucks that no longer needs 8 people in there, only 3 people in there because no one's walking in, they're just driving through. Lay off those people that you don't need, and then say, hey, we got your job back if you want it in 2, 3, 4, 5, or 6 weeks.
Well, that's what they did at my job, at least. They laid all of us off, and then they said that they basically said we're fired, and that in a few weeks when the business reopens, if we want to, apply again for the job, we can do that.
Did they tell you about getting unemployment?
Yeah. Well, what my job actually did was they literally closed the business. So like they literally shut down, so then they don't have to pay us unemployment, because like they don't want to, I guess is that like allowed? Like they literally said like we're closing down and we'll probably like reopen the store like in a few weeks. But I don't know what that meant. But I think that they were saying that they wanted to like actually close the store, because they were like, sorry, we can't like have you guys file or something like that.
So they don't want you to collect, because they have to pay for unemployment. So they have to pay into your unemployment. So they don't want you to claim unemployment. Is that correct?
Yeah. I think that's what they were saying.
Holy crap.
Yeah, I was literally like, what?
My job told me to file for unemployment, but when I tried to file the claim, the waiting is like
forever because everyone's filing.
Everyone's filing. Like I was on the phone for like 4 hours trying to get that through.
Oh my gosh. I didn't even think of that, Nicole. My suggestion would be if you guys had a job and got laid off, file for unemployment. Do it. The worst that happens is they deny it. But, you know, the company might say we're closing in order to not do unemployment, but maybe it's a scare tactic. I'm not sure. I'd have to find out because unless you're filing like bankruptcy, closing your doors just means you're temporarily closed. It doesn't mean that your company is out of business.
Yeah, that's why I was really confused, like that it said that in the letter, like that they sent us all, because I was like, so does this mean that you're like closing down? Because how are we not going to file for unemployment if like we're not working? So yeah, I just have to find out a little bit more information on that. But that's what they communicated to us. So if that's not what they meant, then I guess that's something to do with like the way that they're, you know, what they're putting out there to their employees.
Wow. All right. Well, I mean, geez, I don't even know what to tell you. That sounds a little bit crazy to me.
Yeah, and I think this is the worst part of like this whole recession that we're in right now. Everyone's like uncertain, like whether it's fiscal and monetary policy and how those tie in together, or it's just businesses not knowing how to pay workers or pay rent. It seems like we're in a weird place in the economy right now because we're supposed to be predicting that we'll have growth in the next 6 to 10 months. But if the virus is to last and we're in quarantine for months, how do you get businesses up and running who really need to be in store selling products to pay workers, you know? So
Ethan, you had your hand up.
Oh yeah. I actually experienced the same thing. There was like I always work on a Saturday shift as a pharmacist tech.
Okay.
And it usually never busy until when the coronavirus hit, it got really busy. So I still work there. I don't get laid off because it's technically the front lines. We give prescriptions and stuff to the patients and stuff like that. Sometimes we get threatened. Sometimes we don't. It happens.
Threatened by who?
The patients. They like get really, really insane.
About what? They're not getting their meds or not getting tested?
Like, because
you're the only one of us on the front lines, right? Theoretically. So what is your experience then?
They basically, because the insurance sometimes doesn't cover what they want because of something that happens outside. Maybe people we get it from, the medications like Kinray or Belco, they don't deliver it because of a delay or from just basically not producing the product. Like many medications have gone discontinued and out of stock because of this virus.
Interesting. Okay, so let's take this a step further then. We have an issue with affording everything that we're doing, right? If we can't afford it, your next assignment due next week, what do? Take on debt. Bigger businesses take out loans, or they do what? You either take out a loan, or what do?
Sell bonds.
You sell bonds, right? So those are two options, loans and bonds. So you take on a version of debt. Smaller businesses, just loans. Larger businesses, a combination of loans, equity maybe, and then bonds. Okay? So the next assignment next week, I just want to touch on today. Look at it a bit over the weekend. Monday and Tuesday, we'll discuss this. And then go over some of the terms that you don't know. There's only 4 real brand new terms that are going to involve some serious research. Outside of that, a lot of this is somewhat repetitive and reinforcement of some of the things that we discussed. But again, they flow. So you now have the bill that should be passed today. You based on that, a lot of these businesses will now have an increased amount of debt. Okay. So the assignment, it's about corporate debt, facts about debt in general, types of loans, so leverage loans, what is leveraged finance, more information about bonds that we've discussed, things that you guys already know, the bond rating chart, BB, BBB, AAA, single A. You know, the crazy thing today or last night, did anybody see what Fitch said the U.S. credit rating is?
Don't they keep it at like AAA?
It's still AAA.
Stable.
We have so much debt,
Mhm.
and we are still at AAA.
It's crazy.
It's crazy. I can't put my finger on it. All right. I bet you there was a call from the Fed and from the White House or Congress or the Senate, whatever party wants to do it, made a call to Fitch and said, listen, do not downgrade the United States. It will crush the markets. It will crush employment. Do not downgrade us. And you know what they said? Okay, no problem. There's no other way around it. There's no way around it. I can't grasp $6 trillion worth of money being miraculously printed and used. And
Still AAA.
Unreal. Guys,
That's crazy.
Unreal. But I digress because, I mean, what do I know, right? So that's the bond ratings. Speculative and junk grade high-risk bonds. Okay, what are those? Credit default swaps, which are a very interesting term, along with all of these terms. Now, you know most of these up until right about number 19. Debt, loan, bond, stocks. What is credit? What is defaulting on something? Give an example. Don't just give me a definition, right? What's a speculative investment? Give me examples of these. What is a yield? Find me a bond. Give me the ROI. What is insurance? Because insurance gets you back to CDLs, credit default swaps, and CLOs. Insurance, just what is insurance? All right. It's basically you pay in advance in case something bad happens. It protects your money, right? So you need to know what insurance is because you're going to need to know that in order to answer 19, 20, 21, and 22. Who are your creditors, right? If you take out a loan from Citibank, your creditor is who?
Citibank.
Citibank, right? If I'm Tesla and I sell bonds and, you know, William owns a bunch of these bonds, who is my creditor as Tesla? William. William owns my debt. Okay? Why is a bond rating important? AAA, B-, a couple different phrases to look at. Why is liabilities important? Because we're talking debt. So why is total liabilities important? The more liabilities, the unhealthier your balance sheet. So we've discussed liabilities, we've discussed balance sheets. Now it's a conversation. If you're taking on more debt, how does it look on your balance sheet? What do you think of it? All right. The phrase risk happens fast. Then you get to 19, 20, 21, 22. Mortgage-backed securities, quantitative easing, credit default swaps, and collateralized loan obligations. Research those, give an example. It's not enough to go to Investopedia.com and just copy paste. What is it? Tell me what it is in your words, and then give me an actual example using your own example. So if there's an example of a real company, list it, rephrase it, internalize it, rephrase it, and then spit it out. So I know it came from you guys, not from somebody else's examples. Does that make sense? That is super important because if you don't understand that, you will be lost. One, when Henry Hood hops on our conference call with us next week. And two, you'll be lost when we move on to the next piece of this assignment. All right, so a lot of these terms that you need to know, and activity 1 is define all the terms. The first 18 of these will take you less than an hour. You have a week to do this. There's no reason you can't sit down and do this today for 40 minutes and you're basically done. There's no reason. So I don't want to hear any excuses, especially since you know 90% of these. Part 2 of activity 1 is list 3 companies that have debt. What kind of debt? So a little bit more research. If you choose Tesla, loans or bonds. Apple, loans or bonds. Apple had bonds. Did their bonds mature yet, or are there still bonds outstanding? You'll have to do some research. Name one company that defaulted on their debt obligations. So we'll have to know what is defaulting, who was their creditor, and therefore, if they defaulted or at risk of defaulting, let's say Goldman Sachs owns Ford bonds, Ford defaults on their payments, on the interest rate to their bonds, Goldman Sachs gets hurt because Goldman Sachs isn't getting the money in from Ford owning their bonds. So you need to know who the creditor is, and you need to know what defaulting is. Good so far?
Yes.
And I keep looking up because my other screen is here. So I'm looking at the assignment here on this laptop, and up here is where I can see your pictures and your comments. So that's where I'm glancing back and forth. I'm not like looking at something random. All right. When I look over here, I'm looking at the stock market. All right, because I have CNBC on. So this I'm paying attention. This I'm paying attention. This I'm listening and I'm paying attention, but I'm looking to see an update on the news that's breaking. Okay. Part 4 of activity 1. 3 companies most at risk. Is Apple at risk? To me, no. Is Visa at risk? To me, no. PayPal? To me, no. Square? To me, maybe. All right. Ford? To me, definitely maybe.
Mr. Power, I have a question.
Answer. What's up?
Didn't you say that if they were gonna postpone the Olympics, that it was gonna affect Visa drastically?
Correct. They are postponing the Olympics. It will affect Visa, but Visa has a healthy balance sheet. All Visa is going to do is now generate less income. It's not going to make them go broke. It's just going to impact how much revenue they have. So it's not good. Like, it's definitely not good. It's definitely not good. I actually sold some Visa stock on like Tuesday, which I wish I didn't because the stock went from 130 to like 170. I wish I held it. I wanted to buy it back lower because I expected the canceling of the Olympics to hurt the stock. It didn't. It will hurt it because they're going to generate less revenue. Yes, 100%. Since they're a major sponsor. But it doesn't mean that I think they're a bad long-term investment or that they'll go bankrupt. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So just like Apple, people aren't going to be buying new iPhones or AirPods right now if they're not knowing where their check's going to come from. If Apple doesn't launch the new iPhone until December, none of that is good for Apple. Is Apple at risk of the stock going down? Yes. Is Apple a good long-term investment? Hell yes. However, do I think it's going to be at risk during an economic downturn? As a company, no, they're going to be around forever. Actually, I think this would help them more because all these other businesses making phones and making headphones, they're going to struggle a whole lot more than Apple will. Right? So most at risk. So you're going to have to think more critically. Most at risk. Don't just take a big business like a Home Depot or a PayPal. You know, think of other bit like a Cheesecake Factory. They just announced yesterday they are not able to pay their rent at any facility.
Yikes.
I mean, forget yikes. Why the hell can't you pay your rent? How do you have no money to pay your rent, yet you and I are expected to pay our rent? Why don't they have money to pay their rent? That's crazy.
It's only been a few weeks. Imagine months in. Like, what's going on?
It's barely been. They have only closed their doors for 2 weeks. I don't know. So that bothers me, right? Companies like that, I think, are taking advantage. But maybe their balance sheet is really that bad. Maybe they don't have a lot of money because people aren't going there. I have no idea. Okay? Then we get down to activity 2. I don't need to really necessarily worry about activity 2 yet. Activity 1 is the focus because activity 1 will lend you into activity 2. I extended activity 2 to April 10th, which is a really long time away. And activity 1 is due a week from now. So you have quite a lot of time. I would like you to get activity 1 done, though, by Monday. If you can, by Monday. Because I can't have that conversation with you guys unless by Monday you know some of these terms. Okay? And then activity 2 is built on activity 1. And we'll get it. All right? Whoever's born with knows, bless you. So that's what I have for you today. I just wanted to kind of cover that in case you guys had any questions. Did anybody look at the corporate debt assignment yet?
I started it, but like I only did the first few terms.
That's fine. And the first few terms you guys should know. The first few terms are easy. It's really number 19 through 22 is the new stuff. If you want to watch a good movie while you're home, about 19, 20, 21, and 22, watch the movie The Big Short. If you've seen it, watch it again with your notebook. Don't watch it with your mom or dad because you're going to pause it. Pause the hell out of the movie and take notes. It is one of the wildest movies I've seen. Now, it's a big overcharacterization to a degree, but outside of The Big Short,
that's the movie with Christian Bale, I think.
Yes, with Christian Bale.
Yeah.
Hold on. There was another one that I watched.
Michael Scott.
Yeah, they got a lot of people in that movie. It's a really good movie. But there was a better one.
The Wolf of Wall Street.
No, Wolf of Wall Street's trash. I mean, it's a good movie, but it's a trash movie. So it was actually about the banking crisis. This was actually better than The Big Short. Is it called Bailout? It was actually, I think, one of the hosts for CNBC. Nope, that's definitely not the movie. Movies about the. Maybe I'll just message it to you guys because the guy sent it to New Apps also. I'll send it out. Is it Inside Job? It's not Margin Call. Oh, I think it's Too Big to Fail. Give me 1 second. I'll tell you right now if this is it. I think this was it. I might watch this today because I haven't seen this in a few years. Let me see who's in the cast, and then I'll be able to tell you. Yes, because this is the CEO of Goldman Sachs, I believe, in the movie. So it should be Too Big to Fail. Watch that movie. Too Big to Fail, The Big Short, Inside Job, I'm not sure I saw. But maybe I'll watch all of these. But a lot of these movies, the crisis that we faced in 07, 08, 09 was surrounding around mortgage-backed securities, quantitative easing, credit default swaps, and collateralized loan obligations. Okay? This is the foundation of what happened then. What you're facing now is different. But the level of corporate debt was high going into this health crisis with interest rates at 0 and the Fed buying bonds and companies now taking out more debt. You all of a sudden have a bigger bubble of debt, if you think about it. All right? So those are a couple good movies. The Big Short is good. And then also Too Big to Fail. If you guys have class,
Mr. Power. Okay, yeah. I was just gonna tell you that if it was fine if I can go get my attendance and then come back.
No. We're done. I just
okay.
I wanted to discuss the last assignment, discuss the future assignment. I'm available all weekend. If you guys have questions, I'll stay and I'll post the video later. If you don't have questions, leave. Right now I'll just do Q&A. But if you have class, you guys gotta go. Get your attendance. Go learn something else.
Okay,
right?
Thanks. Bye, guys.
All right, Mr. Power, thank you.
I'll see you guys later.
Nice
If you're
day.
staying,
Right.
anyone who is staying, do you have a question before I let you go?
Yeah, Mr. Power, I have a quick question.
What up, Dave?
Do you think the market is like kind of going down right now because America just became like the first country with the #1 case, or because you always say like Friday, nobody really knows what's gonna happen, so everybody always sells like on a Friday?
Well, you don't know what's going to happen over the weekend, correct? But let me also show you. We looked at the stock market earlier. If you look at the market right now, let's just go to Yahoo Finance. If you look at the Dow Jones right now, or the S&P 500, or Apple, or so if you look at this ETF that follows the S&P 500, look at the past month. it was at 312, down to 220, back up to 260. The last 5 days, it's went from 220 all the way to 260. That's like a 17% gain. At some point, people are probably thinking that it's a little bit too high, too fast over the past 4 days. So it could be people taking profit today, which is why they're selling. People could think that the U.S. is not going to rebound as quickly as we thought. That's possible. It could be people scared to hold stocks through the weekend if things get worse. Also possible. I don't know. If I knew, I'd be a millionaire. All right. I lost a lot of money this week because I actually thought stocks were going to go down. You know, when stocks jumped up from 220 to up here, it took a 5 or 6% jump. I said, okay. I started shorting certain stocks in the market, and the market proceeded to rally another 15 to 10%, which made the shorts I had in the market worthless. That's my fault. I assumed that what I was hearing from people in the industry would force people to be a little bit more scared about investing. It didn't. Right? So I couldn't tell you. I made a bad bet, and we'll see what happens. As of today, it's down a little bit. It's down 2%. It's up 17% this week. So down 2% is nothing when you're up 15% on a week. All right? We'll see what happens over the weekend. Questions on that? Gabe, did that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Any other questions on that, guys?
I have a question about the assignment.
Good. What's up?
So you know how you put 2 assignments that are due on different dates in one link? Do I just make 2 Google Docs and just share it to you differently on different dates?
For corporate debt?
Yeah, for both of them.
Yeah, so this is one document where you're doing 1, 2, 3, and 4. Activity 2 is a PowerPoint. It's a Google slide or a PowerPoint or a PDF. So these are 2 separate documents. You can just submit 2 links.
Okay.
Yeah, so you can submit, go to add submission, activity 1, activity 2. Put the website link. Now I have both documents. Yes.
For the government intervention homework, I just typed it in the text box. I didn't make a Google Docs. Is that fine?
That's fine.
Okay.
To me, I would like you guys to copy paste it to a Google Doc because here's why. When you graduate and leave me in June, I'm deleting all your accounts. So if you ever want this information, you will not have access to it. So if you are typing it in the actual window and not saving it, you won't have access to it after June 30th.
Oh, okay.
So if you want it, which you should, save it.
Okay, I'll transfer it.
Good.
Okay, thank you.
All right, James, Sabrina, I'll see you guys later, okay?
Peace.
Bye.
Bye, guys.